úplně s touhle historkou kde jsme s ním úplně odrovnali.
Ty to neudělala.
Koky jsem s tím odrovnal už předevčírem včera.
To jsem to asi vyprávěl páč.
To věděl od podílka.
Začala ve skláři, že se dostala.
Když pak tu druhou praštila v tom období se na příště. Ještě do nedávna jsme ti zažrali. Se nerozesmál, to si chodila 20-minutový západ. Ano. Já jsem na všechno těch věcí připravil tu odpověď, já si myslím, že to zlepší, a ona to vůbec zlepší.
Správný věci, kde vlastně ne.
Mě zdomluvá to.
Tak si přidávají.
Postavil se tím, že se někoho byl já. Jo. Tak jo. Yes. To se vždycky ptál. Se nepůjde, já se bohužel neprotím. Zase Mano budík to kámo.
Dobrý obraz, že se Mano zpívalo.
Já jsem se jako říkal, že komplex je vždycky starší, tak vypadá takový trošku na ty klej, ale jak se to bylo takhle baručky, tak bylo úplně v pohodě.
To bylo moc.
Můžete chtít třeba vidět záznamy z vydařených krojích očů?
Jo!
Nebo taky speciální rozhovory exkluzivně pro náš podcast. Zkrátka můžete chtít odebírat kolik kontrol.
To tady včera na prdele. Jak byla to, co se na tebe nevykládat, je to slavnou články, to tady bude pěkný. Nevím, jak to bylo. Teď to jeden z největších autobusů.
Ivane, nech toho. Tady nastavit. Nejdřív Harry.
Ještě etičnější. Už pátý ročník festivalu popkultury Comic Con Prague. 3 dny splněných snů všech fanoušků filmů, seriálů, komiksů, her a kostýmů. Čeká vás na program ve všech A teď až se bude hodit na útoku
Ještě nevěděl, že u Malšky to bude možný i tím druhým způsobem zrovna.
Ať se probudíme všichni, teda já to aspoň potřebuji. Pojďte se probudit se mnou. Jsme na besedě s Patrikem Duffym, to samozřejmě všichni víme. Otázky můžete posílat buď přes aplikaci, nebo tamhle u mikrofonu, což mám samozřejmě ze všeho nejradši, protože pak tady nemusím celou dobu číst počítači. For the English speaking people, you can ask questions through our app or on the microphone, especially in the second half of this Q&A. A teď už nebudu dlouho zdržovat. Prosím, přivítejte toho nejhodnějšího ropného magnáta na světě, Patrika Duffyho!
feels so clean.
And nothing better than the nice clean start.
Nice shower in the morning. Hard to get off the clothes, but it's okay. Story of my career right there.
Oh, yeah, well, thank you so much for doing this lovely little bit with us, being such a good sport. Well, it's just been Easter. Let's talk the tale about resurrection of Bobby Ewing.
There you go, there. Only a couple of people in history have done that.
Well, this iconic scene, what I love about this, that it was actually one of the first times when the creators of the show had really listened to the fans, which demanded Bobby Ewing back. But you guys had the terrible quest of how to think of how to do it actually, and how to keep it a secret.
Yes.
How did you pull it out?
Well, it's very interesting because when I left the show and I was gone a year, in the middle of that year that I was gone, Hagman called me up, Larry Hagman, who did JR, called me up. It was in the days before cell phones, so you had an answer machine, you know, in your kitchen, and my little red light was blinking, so I turned it on, and Larry said, Patrick, this is Larry, come out to Malibu. I'm going to take a jacuzzi and get drunk. I have to ask you something. I said, okay. So I went out to Malibu and got drunk and took a jacuzzi. And he asked me to come back on the show. So the interesting thing was, though, when he said that on the answer machine, I turned to my wife and I said, I'll bet you they're going to ask me to come back. And she said instantly, she said, well, the only way you could come back is if that whole last season was a dream. She actually thought that. So it wasn't her idea in the sense that the producers also thought that. But if you think about it, if you have to solve that problem, which is insoluble, the only way to do it is the way that literature has done it, whether it's Alice in Wonderland is a dream, or you know, a third of Shakespeare's comedies are dreams. If you have a problem, you just wake up. You just wake up and nothing happened. It doesn't work if you're having a fight with your wife, however. You can't just wake up and go, no, didn't happen, honey. But that was the only way they could solve it. And it did upset some people, you know, but in the end, they were glad to get the show back to where it was. And we did 5 more years, you know, after Bobby came back. So it did work, you know, and it continues to work.
It continues to work, but it also, because at some point, like, everybody knew that Bobby was coming back, but how did you manage? I know it was a time before internet and everything, but still, people were talking. So.
Yeah, you couldn't spoil it the way you do now with the media that we have and cell phones and all of the other kind of stuff. But in those days, that we still had the equivalency of paparazzi and tabloid media and those kind of things. And even on your own set, when a tabloid like the Enquirer or something, they would offer a lot of money to get a scoop, to get somebody to give them a script and that kind of thing. So we knew we couldn't do the shower scene on our own set. We couldn't do it with a Dallas crew, with anybody. So our producer, Leonard Katzman, who is a dear friend of mine, he and myself were the only two people who knew what we were doing. And what he did was he went to another company in Los Angeles who only does television commercials, for car commercials and dog food and everything. So they built, not like this, but they built the shower scene in a big studio soundstage this size, and a little shower right in the middle of it. And we spent an entire day filming a commercial for soap, for Irish Spring soap. I don't know if you have an Irish Spring here, but it's a green and white bar of soap. So I spent an entire day in a shower like that, with my back to the door, and they would call action, and I'd turn around, the door would open, and I'd say, "Good morning." And I would wait just enough that we knew it was going to be a freeze frame at the end of the show. So I'd say, "Good morning." And you can have a good morning too if you wake up like the Duffy family with Irish Spring soap. It's refreshing. And I did the whole commercial. And I did it over and over and over because we had to pretend that it was really a commercial. Otherwise they would have said, "Wait a minute, it takes a day to film a commercial, not one take." So we filmed an Irish Spring commercial, and they took that one little piece and did it at the end of the show. But even then, they couldn't put it in the Dallas episode until the last minute, the last second. So what happened is, a man, actually it's like a spy movie, a man took the film of that piece of the Dallas episode from Los Angeles on an airplane to New York the day of the show that it was going to be on TV. And just before they put it on the national feed, they edited that scene into the movie at the last second. So even the editors wouldn't know how the show was going to end until just before it went on the air. That's how secretly we had to do it. So, and now you couldn't keep a secret like that no matter what. So everybody knows everything.
Oh my God, that must have been, an adrenaline ride for everyone involved.
It was kind of fun. It was exciting to realize that we were trying to pull one over on the entire world.
Almost like James Bond action.
Well, especially the guy with the suitcase. I don't think it was handcuffed to it, but it should have been.
Well, you had this iconic scene, but with all respect, due to you, Larry Hagman had the iconic character of JR as the ultimate villain. Even in Czech Republic, when you want to say that someone is really a shady villain, you can still say he's a JR.
He's a JR.
It works internationally. What was your relationship between the white hat and the black hat on the set?
Well, on the set and off the set were actually the same thing. It was whether the camera was rolling or not. Larry Hagman was my best friend I had in my life. From the day we met, we read the script of Dallas. That's the first day I met him. The entire cast got together and read the script. We didn't know anybody. Hi, I'm Patrick. I'm Linda Gray. I'm Steve Canady. I'm Davey. And I shook Larry's hand. Hi, I'm Patrick. I'm Larry Hagman. I shook his hand. I went home that day after reading the script, and I told my wife, I said, "I think I met my best friend today." And it turned out to be true. That he and I were best friends from that handshake till the day he died. I was at the hospital by his bedside when he died. So we were best friends that entire time. And we had more fun. We were the absolute opposite of our characters. We were never serious. We just had fun. It was like two children in a playground until the camera was turned on. As soon as the camera turned on, we did our parts and became Bobby and JR. But even then, there was something in the eyes when I grabbed him or whatever, punched him, throw him in the swimming pool or whatever it was. And all the time, I could just see his eyes like almost laughing. And it was such fun. It was such great fun. But the characters themselves, we both thought we were the hero of the show. And I think was the secret of JR. JR thought he was a hero. He thought he was doing everything right. He was doing it for the right reasons and everything. He was doing the wrong things, but for the right reasons. You know, and Bobby was doing the right things for the right reasons. And it was a great dynamic, especially to do it with your best friend.
Oh, it's so nice. This summer we have a special morning routine with Larry.
Yeah, that was quite a morning routine. That's why you had a liver transplant. Yeah. But so every morning, well, when we read the script, I told you about the cast got together at Warner Brothers studio, and they got a big table in a room, and we all had the scripts and everything. We all came in. Larry came in dressed with a cowboy hat, a leather shirt, fringe, leather boots, the whole, totally JR, the cowboy character. And on his shoulder, he had saddlebags. And in Westerns, on the back of a horse, you know, they have saddlebags that they put all their stuff in. And his saddlebags had bottles of champagne. So he had about 6 or 7 bottles of champagne when he came in. So we read the script and drank champagne. And I thought, well, isn't that a fun thing to do once? Every morning for 13 years, when I would go to work, we would get to work at 6:30, 7 in the morning. I would drop my bags in my dressing room. I'd go to Larry's dressing room. We would open a bottle of champagne, and we would have a glass of champagne to start the day. Every single morning for 13 years. That's what we did. That was our tradition. Which explains why after lunch you couldn't understand the word we said.
Well, as you said, JR was trying to do anything, you know, for the company. But it seemed to me that actually Bobby was kind of a, you know, more successful businessman than JR in the end. Like,
did you do that research? Because you're absolutely right. No, it's true. Our producer finally, you know, because I was going, Bobby's got to do something really cool, you know. And Leonard took me aside. He said, I've done the math. Bobby Ewing made more money for Ewing Oil than JR did in terms of the scripts. Because JR would do something and the ship would sink. Or the oil well would catch on fire and stuff. Bobby did things and it worked. So Bobby was actually, which I didn't understand, a better businessman than JR was. But yeah, so I was actually better, and I had to be told that.
and do you personally have some talent for business?
None at all. Well, you know, the perfect example is I quit the show. Not a very good business decision. You know, after year 7, I thought, well, the show's so successful, and you know, I came from Atlantis, where I had the show of my own, and I thought if I'm ever going to get another show of my own, then I should leave at the height and use the popularity of the show to get another job. So I quit. Stupid decision, business-wise, and not very smart. So I did work, but I never got that show during the year that I was off. And so when they asked me to come back, I was more than happy to come back. I wanted to because I miss my friend. But it changed the show as well. The show then became more the Bobby JR conflict kind of show. So in essence, I got what I wanted, but I did it by making an absolute business fool of myself. But I'm very fortunate. It's better to be lucky than good. You know?
I don't know if you realize this, but you two, as Bobby and JR, you were actually the two who did introduce the capitalism to us, because Dallas was broadcasted here like 2 years after the fall of the communism, broadcasted on the public television channel. There were 2 channels, so everybody watched it because there was some poetry on the 2nd channel. Whole families were watching it like prime time television. And you showed us like what the capitalism looks like, the good side and the bad side. In your opinion, how much of a realistic portrait did you paint? Are there any real hobby wings in the world?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think it's, well, I think there's two ways to answer that question, and both of them, I'm saying that you are correct. One is the viewpoint of a family, and the other one is the viewpoint of the economic position of that family, but of the world in general. And both of them have the same premise, which is that you can find anything in both of those scenarios. A family, I think one of the reasons Dallas was successful is we were a family that was not much different than any other family, except we were incredibly rich. In other words, we had problems. We had, every family's got the stupid uncle, the idiot brother, the mother and father who fight, or that. In other words, we had a little something for every family to say, oh yeah, that's just like my house. That's like oh yeah, that's my brother. Oh yeah, that's just, I love my sister, whatever. So anyway, the family aspect was universal. But I think economics is the same way. I don't think capitalism is good or bad. It's who does capitalism. It's who creates the power structure around the decisions that are made in capitalism. So, I've heard this story from many different countries that started behind the Iron Curtain, that saw Dallas, and in Romania, they saw it while they were still not free from the Iron Curtain syndrome. So, it was shown in Romania to show the decadence of capitalism and how horrible it was. But whenever people over there saw it, they went, I want some of that. How come we don't have that? That kind of feeling. So there are positive sides to it. It does, in many ways, and in most ways, I would say, make life better for the general population, but it can be abused. It can be used for nefarious reasons. And the rich get rich and the poor get poorer, like the song. So, there's a little something for everybody, and it really depends on who is manipulating the situation. And in Dallas, we bounced back and forth. JR would win, Bobby would win, Pamela would win, Sue Ellen would be drunk. Bobby would win, Sue Ellen would be drunk. Lucy would have trouble, Sue Ellen would be drunk. So, but in general, we bounce back and forth, and economically we did too. Bobby would win, JR would win. We lose money, we make money. So I think it was a realistic portrayal of both of those things, the family unit and capitalism.
Thank you. Well, you came back the first time, and then you came back the second time, and there was the reboot in the 2014.
I was going to say, I didn't remember dying again. Yeah, the reboot.
Yeah, but my question is, what was the difference between Bobby in the 80s and Bobby in 2014?
You ask really good questions. Give her some applause. No woo-wooing. You didn't woo-woo me. Don't woo her. But interesting, as an actor, let's say you're 20 years old and you play Hamlet, right? Hamlet was 20, so I'm playing Hamlet. Yeah, I'm a 20-year-old actor, I'm playing Hamlet. Then you're 30, and you go, I can still play Hamlet. Yeah, and you play Hamlet as a 20-year-old, but you're 30. Then you're 50, and you're going, no, there's no way I can play Hamlet. Can't do Hamlet now. But Bobby got to age. And so we did Dallas for 13 years before it went off the air. So Bobby started, I turned 30 when we started Dallas, and I was almost 50 when we stopped. Then we were off the air for 20 years, and we did the reboot of Dallas, but I didn't go back and play Bobby as if, it was the next day. As a matter of fact, the first scene of the new Dallas when we rebooted was Bobby's 60th birthday. Now, I lied a little, I was 65. But but I was able to play the aging process of a character. And that to me was very interesting and a lot of fun. I didn't have to be the Bobby that was Bobby, you know, always fighting and strong and all of that. I had to be the Bobby who was 60 years old, you know, and I was, you know, 65, like I said. So it was an enjoyable thing to make up in your mind you can no longer do, that you should no longer do, but then open the door to the things that are new possibilities, more mature, a more thoughtful, a more you know, trustworthy in the sense of stability, all of those things. So it was an interesting experiment as an actor to play the same character from 30 to 65 and not pretend that you're 30.
Well, talking about getting back to previous roles, you did return to Mark Harris from A Man from Atlantis a few years back when you wrote the novel. Basically a very long fanfic. That's what we call when a fan of a show, you know, writes the continuation from his own imagination. What drove you back to A Man of Atlantis?
Well, I did Man from Atlantis from 1976 to 78, and we did the pilot of the first movie, which I thought was really good science fiction. You know, this water-breathing human being, you know, washed up. Where is he from? What's it? You know, what are his powers? What are his abilities, etc.
First Aquaman.
Yeah, basically it was like Aquaman. And then we did 3 more TV movies that were kind of on the same realm. But when we went to the series, when we were doing a 1-hour show every day, it turned into a comic book kind of superhero, like the early Batman television show. And I wasn't upset. I was thrilled to have a job. But I thought, oh gosh, I wish we would have explored that real concept of that stranger in a strange land, the Robert Heinlein book, of just how out of place this person is, and what is that life experience, and then how do people try and capitalize on it and use it for their own reasons. But we never did that show, and then it was canceled. But it was always in my mind. And so early on I wrote maybe 4 pages of just some ideas of what I thought, and then I just let it alone. And it was about 20 years after that I decided to, I had some time off. I was up at where I lived in Oregon, and I had a couple of months, so I thought I'd sit down at my computer and try writing, which I'm not a writer. I've never claimed to be one, and the book may prove it, you know. But I wrote what I thought was the story of the Man from Atlantis. And when I got done, I thought, okay, at least I purged that sense of unfulfillment that I had, and I made myself known in terms of my own desires of what the story should be, and I had that one book. And I actually planned on writing 3. It had a triptych idea to it, but the one is enough. And I just decided that now I told my story, and I think now almost 12 people have bought the book. So there's 12 people out there that know my story.
I think there will be much more after today. Well, when Dallas invaded, you moved to another favorite show of us 90s kids, and that was Step by Step. Was that a big step for you and the mankind from the drama to comedy?
Well, it was a big step for the audience to accept me doing a situation comedy, as opposed to, you know, I did Man from Atlantis, who was like, whoop, and then I did Bobby, who was like, ugh. And then, you know, when they asked me to, when it was suggested I did do a half hour, which it was suggested when I left the show the first time, during that 1 year I was off. It was suggested that I do a half hour, and the producers that ended up being the producers of Step by Step, when they were approached about me, they said, yeah, but he's not funny. and I don't blame them, they'd never seen anything like that. But then I went back on Dallas, and when Dallas was canceled, went back to those same producers, and they sent them, I guess you have them here too, the outtakes, the goof reel, the bloopers, the parts that you don't use because everybody's goofing around. And the Dallas producers sent them the goof reel that was just ours to the production company. And they went, oh, he can be funny. So they wrote Step by Step. And I walked in, it's very interesting, I walked into the production office of Miller Boyette, who did a lot of half-hour shows. And I was introduced to Suzanne Summers. And we looked at each other, and in my mind I said, oh, you're my new Larry Hagman. And it was true, she and I became dear friends, the best of friends, literally, again, unfortunately, till the day she died. Yeah, my dear friends. So I've been very fortunate to, over the course, and actually I did that show, Man from Atlantis, and the woman who was the co-star on that show, Belinda Montgomery, is still a dear friend of mine. So I worked from Atlantis through the end of Step by Step, was 24 years, and I was only out of work for 3 weeks. I had 1 week between Atlantis and Dallas, and 2 weeks between Dallas and Step by Step. So I got to work with my best friend for 24 years.
You had your own kids when you were shooting Step by Step. They were like 11 or 17 or something like that when you started.
Yeah.
Did that help you with handling the kids and doing the comedy with them?
Oh, there's no help when it comes to children. No, you're on your own when it comes to children. And you're playing against a stacked deck, because they're smarter and they move faster, and you're just a victim of your children, basically. Which was the premise of Step by Step. You know, the children ruled in terms of the subject matter of the show. And so as parents, Suzanne and I had to deal with the children, but all we wanted to do was go upstairs and go to bed. That was the entire plot of Step by Step. Kids get in trouble, Frank and Carol want to go to bed. And even when Frank and Carol are in bed, they can't go to bed because the children come in all the time. So it was like, you know, the dilemma of family. But yes, both of my boys basically grew up, you know, as I was doing television. So they didn't help in terms of specific subject matter, but you know, I've been very lucky, knock on that, to have a beautiful family. I was married for 46 years, 2 children. I now have 4 grandchildren. Both my boys are happily married, productive, honorable, you know, courageous young men who married wonderful women, and I have great grandchildren. So in that sense, I feel like I have a handle on parenting, which is basically shut up and get out of the way. You know? But every once in a while, I gotta say, you know, never raised a hand to my children, but I mastered the art of getting large. And I think it only works with boys, to be quite honest, because I never had girls until I had granddaughters. But with my boys, whenever they would just get so out of hand, I had this ability to just get large. You know, and no matter how much bigger they got, I just kept getting larger. And then, you know, now I'm getting smaller. But they've developed their own personalities, so I don't have to get large anymore. But you know, and that's all Frank could do, you know, on Step by Step, is he could somehow try and be a guy. And every once in a while it worked.
Well, you started, sorry. Quite soon, you even started directing the show. And I was wondering, what was harder, to direct the kids or the adults?
Well, I was sort of, you know, first I started directing Dallas. I directed about 40 of those. Then when I did Step by Step, I was the alternating director, so I did direct about every other or every third one. And when you're doing a half hour with a lot of young people, it was great fun, because I was like a camp counselor, you know, the entertainment director on the Love Boat, those kind of things. And we just had fun, and then while you're having fun, you can kind of move people a certain way while they're laughing. You know, you go, that's a great time. Why don't you try that over there? You know? And then they go, okay, and you've done your directing for the day, and you get a good show. It is a community. It's it takes a village. Even as a director, it takes a village. And the lovely thing was, we were such a happy family on Step by Step that the kids all looked at me like I was a camp counselor, and we just had fun. And they loved being stupid, you know, which is great fun. And none of them were embarrassed about anything that they had to do, no matter how silly it was, which made it complete joy to work with them. They are still my children. I still get Father's Day cards from them. I wrote letters of recommendation to get them into college. These are the kinds. So I have 2 of my own children, and I have 6 of somebody else's. Yeah.
Well, that was the premise of the show. The first family,
right.
But there's a second family. And I was wondering if you personally do believe in the love at second sight, at the second chance to have the second love of your life.
I'm a walking example. I'm a living example of getting a second chance. I said I was married for 46 years. I fell in love with a ballerina when I was 24 years old. And we fell in love, we got married, we had a family, and we were happily married, you know, ecstatically happily married for 46 years. My wife passed away 7 years ago. And I thought that that was a great life, well lived. I was already a grandfather at that point 3 times. And I thought, this is great. And I lived on a ranch up in Oregon. I was a hero to my grandkids. You know, they would come up, I would take them fishing, teach them how to drive the tractor and dig a hole with a backhoe. And, you know, we had a huge garden and everything. And I was a hero grandfather, you know, just content, I think would be the right word. I was just completely content. And I thought that was the way I would end my life. You know, however long it took, I was content. And then things happened that I was not looking to happen. And I met a woman, re-met a woman who I'd known of, Linda. I'm now, you know, a partner with the most incredible woman named Linda Pearl, who's an actress, who I knew of since Man from Atlantis days. As a matter of fact, when I left Atlantis, one of the jobs offered was to be her husband on her television show. And I decided not to do that, and I took Dallas instead. So about every 20 years, we would see each other at some function and go, oh, hi, how are you? I'm fine. And none of that. And about 4 years ago, we met at a celebrity event, said, hi, how are you? And by virtue of a mutual friend, we started texting. She lived in Colorado, I lived in Oregon, our friend lived in New York. We would, you know, text each other and do that. Then COVID hit. And during COVID, we started, again, texting, and then we started phoning each other, the 3 of us, and then our friend dropped out. But we were isolated, as everybody in the world was. And our phone calls were things like, what are you doing? Oh, I'm washing my vegetables. What are you doing? That kind of thing. And then it went from phone calls to FaceTime. And we said, oh, we can do FaceTime, so now we can see each other. And over the course of time, when we were isolated, we went from FaceTime to Zoom. And then things happened, and it was so interesting. Conversations went from the silly to the interesting to then the very personal. And it went from literally washing your vegetables to saying, you know, I told her, I said, I wrote a poem. Would you like to hear the poem I wrote? She goes, yeah, I'd love to hear the poem you wrote. So I would read the poem. She would say, I heard this piece of music. And so for about 3.5 months, towards the end of being isolated, we Zoomed every single night for 2 to 3 hours. We just turned on the Zoom and we would be together, you know, 1,500 miles apart, but be together. And there came a point when, it came a point, this is so silly, it came a point where every night, because of the time difference, you know, where I was on the West Coast and she was in the middle of the US, so there was a couple hours difference, and so she'd get tired first, And we'd look at each other and say, okay, you're getting sleepy. I'll talk to you tomorrow, 7 o'clock break. And one night, it was like, oh, you're getting tired. I see the, listen, you go to bed, I'll talk to you tomorrow night. Okay, sleep tight, I love you. And I turned off and went, oh God, what did I say? But it just popped out. And interestingly enough, you know, we've been together now almost 4 years, and she said on the other side, she did the same thing. She heard, I love you, and hung up, she went, what? What'd you say? So the next day we talked, and it was a little, you know, iffy. But in short order, we decided, well, we better see if this is real or if it's not real. This is a long story, I'm sorry. So I jumped in my car, and I drove 23 straight hours and ended up on her doorstep. And we've never been apart since. So, but what that teaches me, and what it should teach everybody, is that there is no such thing as a final moment. There's no such thing as not being completely happy. Content is not the end of the quest. You know, there's much more. And if you keep your ears open and your eyes clear and your antenna up, you will get the signal, you'll get the message, you'll find that ability to resurrect that feeling that you had. So I was ecstatically in love and married for 46 years. Today I am ecstatically in love again, and it can happen to everybody. So never give up is the clue.
We've got some audience questions.
Okay.
This is all from me for some time. There's a question like, are you in contact with other actors from the Step by Step?
All the time. Interesting, all but two of the actors, the young actors from Step by Step, all but two had left the business. Dana, the beautiful oldest daughter on Step by Step, Stacey Keenan, is now an assistant district attorney for the city of Los Angeles. She put herself through law school and is now a district attorney. JT is this real estate mogul. He buys and sells apartment buildings and all of that. Chris, who played Christopher, Chris Castile, is a nerd because he left the show and he put himself through high school and college, and he became a college professor. And he teaches mathematics and calculus and stuff. So he didn't fall too far from the tree of his character. Christine Lakin stayed in the business, and the little girl who played my youngest daughter. She's now the mother of two. She is a producer, writer, and a choreographer and director of television. Works all the time. Sasha, Cody, you know, he's a welder. He welds, you know, bang, puts things together, and loves it. And he's as big as a Volkswagen now. He's just a, you know, muscle-bound, big guy. He welds things like stairways in 40-story apartment buildings and all of this kind of stuff. And he still does his kickboxing and his stuff. He's the great father of 4 children. And every once in a while he'll do a cameo or a guest star or something. But he likes just going to work every day and going to the gym every day. So all of my kids have turned out really well. It just turned out terrific. I'm a proud father.
Stepfather.
Hi.
So I want to say first thing that thank you so much for the last story you said, because it is such a hope for my father, who's your age, and as my mother died for COVID, so thank you so much. And what I wanted to say also to more funny way, it's the Dallas that went on the official TV was only first 28 par And then we had to do a petition to get other 300 episodes, which then was like there was 2 years gap. And my question finally is about social ritual. It's when you met him on the step by step, and you take him to dance with you, or it was a coincidence?
Oh, I see. Yeah, Sasha was on both shows. Interestingly enough, I was his uncle for 14 years, which was interesting.